Hi, welcome. This is the official first episode of A Note from Mom podcast. I am your host, Amie Reed Skwiat, and I am glad to be here. I'm glad you're here. So hopefully you were able to listen to kind of the initial episode just to introduce you to why I'm here, why I'm doing this, all the good things. But just as a refresher, there's no expectations here. I am literally in my closet doing this, and I am trying to do this as something for my kids to leave a legacy for them, especially my daughter. And to be honest, I'm an introvert, so these episodes will not be longer than 20 minutes, most likely. If they are, then it's because it's a very important topic, or I have maybe a guest on. I also, I wanted to do these videos. I also did a video. So if it's better for you to watch, sometime I'm a visual person. Sometimes it's better to watch someone speak. If that's the case, then that's why I decided to do video, but mainly because I want my kids to be able to see me. If I do kick the bucket early, at least they have some videos of me and they can watch me talk. And yeah, that's really what it is. Again, no expectations. I have no idea how many episodes I'm going to do. I have no idea how often they're going to be done. Some days I might be in here with no makeup on and my house robe, and that's just what it's going to be. So yeah, anyway, I'm just going to start by saying, I guess another thing that came up for me was just recently, my daughter's 7.5 years old. And yes, we use the half birthdays because they're very important to her. So she's 7.5, and she has been recently asking for me to share things. She's like, "Hey mom, can we share something about our life?" And I'll say, "Well, you go first," because, and I'm a listener, right? I'm a therapist. I'm a life coach. I'm an active listener. I love to listen. And then when someone asks me to talk about me and myself, it's kind of like, I get triggered. It's just not something that I do very often. So I'll have her go first. And then when it's my turn, I really kind of get discombobulated. And so I decided to kind of, I guess, face my fears and talk about my life and my experiences, and then how I've kind of helped others with that. I had a really hard time in my quarter life crisis. So quarter life crisis is mainly your 20s, and it's really about like you're trying to understand the world, you're trying to find yourself. It's very hard, very confusing. Honestly, like when I was going through it, there weren't like a whole lot of self-help books to help in this area, and if there were, I wasn't willing to read them. So anyway, I just I'm not an expert by any means, but I have mastered the I guess guidance of the 20s and the quarter life crisis. So that's really why I'm here, to kind of share and help with that area. And then of course I help many different women on their journey. So I have a lot to talk about. And honestly, I have a lot in this brain and I need to get it out. I've been told that I have a lot of knowledge and that I should share it. So here we are. So what I want to talk about this first episode is really just about kind of starting from the beginning. I really had no idea where to start, so I'm just going to start from the beginning and talk about like kind of external validation. That's really a lot about what your 20s are. We start out, as kids, we learn how to get validated. We learn if we do something good, we'll be told we did it great. And, if we hug our moms, they're going to love it and they're going to hug us back and say, "I love you too." We figured out at a young age how to get this validation. And that's a good thing, and it can be a bad thing too, right? Because if we're overly validated, then we don't ever figure out how to validate ourselves, right? At least in our childhood. So in our 20s, we are really basically trying to find that validation. We are searching for validation. We are looking for validation. And the reason why is because, when we're in grade school, we get graded, right? Like, so as a kid, as a young kid, we're told you did a good job or you did a bad thing, right? So it's good or bad. When we get into school, we get told whether you're acting good or acting bad. We get graded. You get good grades and you get bad grades. And we're constantly graded all the way through college, right? And then we get into real life and it's like, holy crap, no one's here to grade me, right? No one's here giving me an A plus, B, C, D, D minus, F, none of that, right? No one's sitting here saying, this is what you're doing right, this is what you're doing wrong. And it becomes, actually, except for if you're in a job, right? They'll tell you if you're doing a good job or a bad job, which then leads you to a whole different thing, right? So then we find our validation through our career, which whole different episode. We will talk about that at some point. But you just get into adulthood, you start adulting, and there's no one there to grade you. And so you're trying to find validation, trying to get someone to tell you if you're good, if you're a bad person, if you're doing things well, if you're doing things not so well. And that's really what our whole 20s is about. And one of the hardest things I found in my life is trying to find ways to validate myself. How can we learn to validate ourselves without having to have an external validation, right? But you don't really know how to do that because you're so stuck in this external world, right? Like you're adulting and you're trying to find a job, right? You're trying to find a job that makes you happy. So it's very external. You're trying to find your partner, the person that's going to love you and accept you for who you are. You're trying to find these friendships. Like, how are you going to find friends that love you and validate you and make you feel good? And then, there's so much on social media. Like, how can I get validated through social media with all the likes and the shares and all of these things? And so it's very, external. What do these people think? And you're also really worried about what the people think, like especially in your early 20s, that kind of dies down as you get a little bit older in your older 20s. But it very much is about like, what do people think about me? So it's very external, right? And then on top of that, you're in survival mode because all of a sudden you are learning how to survive. You're learning how to survive in ways of how am I going to support myself, right? Your career. How am I going to find a place to live? How am I going to pay for that place to live? How am I going to pay for my own food? How am I going to pay for my own insurance? How am I going to pay for my own phone bill, right? So you get into this adulting where most likely some of those things, if not all of them, are taken care of by your parents. And now you're trying to figure out how to do it. And so you go into this whole different realm of survival mode. And you may not see it as like this full like survival, but it is. You go back to the basics, and the basics as far as like psychological needs are, and it's called the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The basic is, survival. It's shelter, it's water, it's food, it's procreation. It's like, how am I going to find these things? And that becomes your main focus. So when you are in this survival mode or this like external place, you don't really rise up in the hierarchy of needs because you're not really worried about where do you belong, what's your purpose. You're worried about how are you going to survive. And that is what I want to work on and talk about over the next few episodes is going to be kind of just this external world, right? Like if we look at this world in our life as this, onion, and I'm sure you've heard this before, you may not, but like life's like an onion, right? And when you start to peel back the layers of that onion, you start to experience different things. And the first layer of that onion is external. right? It's all about your external world. And so I want to talk about that and ways to process that and break it down and get to a place where we can peel back that part, that layer of the onion, right? The external part, so that you can start to dig deeper. You can start to understand life differently. You can look at your internal world. We can start to heal, in inner child wounds that we have. But to be honest, it's really hard, really, really hard to go internal when you're so stuck in this external world, when all you care about is what's outer world, how to please other people, what are people thinking, how to get this validation externally. So the next few episodes are going to be mainly about that, about the external world. How do we process it? How do we take care of it? What are some steps to take to better that part of you? So yeah, that's what I've got for now. And I look forward to this fun journey. I look forward to sharing this so that someday my kids can either watch it or listen to it and maybe get some guidance into their life. So again, this is my first episode. Others will be a little bit more deeper and a little bit more action-packed, but for now, that's what I've got. And thank you for being here. And to my kids, I love you more than the sun rises. Bye for now.